Hey everyone, welcome back to HiFi Home Theater. This is the review for the Martin Logan Motion XT F200 tower speaker. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the specs of the F200, get up close and check out the details of it. Then we'll shoot over and take a look at some in-room measurements I have. I'll talk about the subjective sound qualities of the speaker, go over some competitive options if you're in the market of what I would recommend also checking out, do some pros and cons, and then we'll wrap up the video. But first, to start out, let's go over why I chose the F200. Before the F200, I had the Arendal Sound 1723 Tower S speakers in here. Did a review, and if you haven't checked it out, please do. I'll post a link right here. In that review, I gave it a glowing recommendation. It was the perfect speaker for me, and that was true at the time. It was still the perfect speaker for me, but as happens a lot of the times with a lot of us in this hobby, after a little over a year of ownership, I was bit by the upgrade bug, and I wanted to go bigger. I was actually looking at the bigger brother to the 1723 Tower S, just the regular 1723 tower. I had already bought the center channel, and I was getting ready to purchase the towers when our friend Andrew Robinson drops this video here of the little brother to the F200, the Martin Logan F100. Now, I've been following Andrew Robinson for several years now. I trust his opinion. I share the same opinion with him on a lot of the products that he's reviewed. And when he gave the F100 such a glowing review, I was instantly interested in it. But it was still a little bit on the small side. I was still leaning towards the 1723. That's when I gave my buddy Ryan Charpentier at Ascend AV a call, and he gave me a deal on the F200s that I couldn't pass up. So here they are. It's as simple as that. All right, let's go over some of the specs of the F200. The frequency response is 27 hertz to 25 kilohertz. I'm going to say that's definitely at least an in-room measurement, and we can go over a little bit more of that when I show you my measurements. The waveguide dispersion pattern is 45 degrees vertical and 90 degrees horizontal, so it's a little bit tighter of a pattern vertical than it is horizontal. The sensitivity is rated at 92 dB. The impedance is 4 ohms. Crossover frequencies, the 8s go up to 300 hertz, where they cross over to the mid-range at 300 hertz. The mid-range goes up and crosses over to the tweeter at 2600 hertz. For the tweeter, we have Martin Logan's Gen 2 Obsidian Folded Motion XT tweeter, and it sits in that waveguide. The mid-range is a Kevlar cone reinforced on the back by Nomex. It sits in an aluminum basket, and it's in its own sealed chamber. For the bass drivers, we have 3 8-inch aluminum cones in aluminum baskets, and they are ported. The ports are actually on the bottom of the speaker. The recommended amp power lists from 20 to 600 watts. I do not have an amplifier capable of putting out 600 watts, neither RMS or dynamic, so I couldn't tell you if that was a RMS or dynamic rating. Then we have a weight of 86 pounds, and the speaker is 50 3/4 inches tall, 13 3/4 inches wide, and 16.5 inches deep. The finishes come in gloss black, like you see here, walnut, and a satin white. So those are the specs, and now I want to flip the camera around and get up close to the speaker and go over some of the details with you. All right, here we are. We're going to get up close to the F200, and we'll start with the cabinet. As you can see, this is gloss black, and this is pretty much a mirror finish on this. I mean, you can see the reflection on the side there. One thing to note is this is actually a separate construction. You have the gloss black piano finish of the main enclosure, and then the baffle itself is actually separate from the enclosure, and it's secured with what is actually just your normal plastic peg and grommet system you see on a lot of speaker grills. So it just kind of fastens itself to the front of the speaker. The AMT is actually part of the baffle, attached to the back of the baffle itself. And this is part of what gives it its fastener-less look to it. So you don't see any screws or nuts or bolts or anything. It gives it a really clean front baffle. But just keep that in mind, that that's actually two pieces there. That baffle, the whole front baffle comes off. Okay, so let's start with the tweeter. You got your AMT tweeter. It's actually a pretty good size tweeter. It's got these kind of plastic grill in front of it. They're not too flimsy, so they do gives you a little bit of kid protection there, poking fingers. It's nested in that waveguide. Not, you know, it's not too deep. It's kind of a shallow waveguide, but it does its job. And then we move on to the mid-range. One thing about the mid-range, it's a sealed mid-range, and it's very damped. I don't know if you could pick this up, if my microphone will pick this up. Very, very damped. I mean, you can see if I push this in, it doesn't even really push in much when I try pushing it in. It's got this like reverse surround here. And you can see there's really no excursion to it at all. And so that mid-range being so damped, I believe, is part of what gives it its great mid-range qualities. All right, move down there, you got your Martin Logan symbol. And then we have the 3 8-inch woofers. These are aluminum cones here. And the surround on these, this is like the softest surround I've ever seen. I mean, it's very, very pliable, very, very soft. But nice looking drivers, nice looking front on here. All right, let's move on to these feet. These feet are really cool. I think they call them fast feet. And the cool thing about them is, as you turn them to the left or the right, they actually raise the foot up and down. The only problem with these are, I think they're awesome, I love them, is that they don't really have tension in between the clicks. And so they could have a tendency to rattle. And it's hard to see here, I don't know if you can see, but I actually have this washer, rubber O-ring slapped around here to actually keep these from rattling. But otherwise, I love the feet. I love the foot design. I wish more speakers manufacturers would do something like this. All right, swinging over to the back, you got your binding posts on the back there for you can buy wire or buy amp them. I don't have any interest in doing either one of those. But that's the back. I did want to give you guys a look at what the speaker looks like with the speaker grills on. It gives it a very nice, clean look. But the only thing is, these speaker grills, I wish they were attached with magnets. They don't. They attach with these little pegs in here, and it basically just friction fits itself into this little channel there. And it's, you know, not that big a deal, but I could see after a while these tabs kind of marking the inside or indenting the inside of this channel. So I really wish they found maybe like some kind of magnetized solution for that. But that's my only gripe with the covers. All right, so that's the specs and the details of the F200. And now what I want to do is take you guys over to my laptop here and show you what I'm getting for an in-room response for the F200. You will notice this was not done with REW. This is Anthem Arc Genesis. These are the results I got from my sweeps that I've done for my profiles. I found that Arc does a very good job on the reading, so I find these to be pretty accurate. So taking a look here, what we're looking at is my left front speaker. This is the F200 that's on the left. My one on the right is closer to a corner. So we'll show that real quick so you can see the results. Very similar until you get to the bass region where you got this null right around 45 hertz or so. And then actually you got this boost up around 30, which that's the corner loading effect on that speaker. That's why I'm using the left. I think it gives a more real response of the speaker because it's nowhere near a corner. The closest corner is at least 15 feet away from this speaker. So I feel like this is a good representation of this speaker on axis. Mostly the time, except for maybe this trough here. This is also my room. I have this same effect going on in several other speakers in my setup. So take that trough away and I'm pretty confident that this is a good representation of this speaker on axis. One thing to note is the bass begins to increase starting at around 200 hertz, which makes sense if you're familiar with the equal loudness curves, where bass has to become louder and louder in order to sound the same level as everything else, the lower you go in frequency. So that's actually a good attribute that they designed into the speaker that will help a lot of people, especially people that are using this for 2-channel that don't have subwoofers. And then this slight increase, although this is on axis, and you probably get a more neutral response if you toe these out a little bit. Or even if I guess if I towed these more in, I could get maybe a more neutral response. But these don't sound bright, even though this does look like it's boosted treble, which a lot of people may look at that and say, oh, that's going to be bright. Or maybe you're sensitive to bright speakers that may be bright for you. But the thing is, these speakers have really good directivity and can be EQ'd. So you could very easily just EQ these flat or even lower if you wanted to. So all in all, no, I don't have a clipple like Aaron or Amir to give these speakers a proper measurement. I'm not exactly sure what the results of those be. But in my opinion, I think this is a well-designed speaker. I think this is doing exactly what Martin Logan wants it to do. They have access to one of the best anechoic chambers in the world. They know they designed this speaker to do this on purpose, and I can appreciate their efforts. I think the bass is really good to have, especially if you don't have a subwoofer. It also gives you sensitivity in that region for a crossover to subwoofers. And I like a neutral sounding speaker, so I can also appreciate this slight tilt up in the treble. I'm also getting older. I'm 48 years old, so I'm pushing 50 years old. High frequency hearing is starting to fade just like anybody else. So I don't really have much hearing past 11, 12 kilohertz. So a little boost in the treble doesn't hurt anything for me at all. But at the same time, like I said, if you do find this speaker bright because of its directivity, you could very easily EQ this down. I actually have a profile where I do EQ this all the way flat. And I can tell you that the difference is very, very subtle. It's not a night and day difference at all. So, yep, let's look at how these speakers measure in my room. All right, competitive options. I'm going to start with the speaker I was actually originally looking at when I was looking to upgrade from my Tower S's, and that's the big boy 1723 Tower THX. This is a big, heavy speaker. These things are built like tanks. They use HDF instead of MDF. I just find the build quality of these speakers to be exceptional, even more so than the Martin Logans. I know other reviewers have praised Martin Logans on their build quality. To me, it's good. They're good quality, but not class leading. I think the Arundels they're built more heavy duty than the Martin Logans. These have gone up in price a little bit. They're now $3,900 a pair. I think if you're looking for a 2-channel setup, I think these without subwoofers, these are still a good choice, a really good choice. But if you have a subwoofer setup, I will say this. There's one thing with these speakers. This is a 2.5 way, and the bottom 2 woofers are low passed at 100 hertz. And that's fine for 2-channel. That's fine. It just adds extra oomph down low in the bass region. The problem is with the home theater, if you cross over at 80 hertz or even at 60 hertz, that doesn't leave a lot for these woofers to do to benefit you, right? Whereas some of these other woofers, I think, like the F200s the woofers are crossed to the mid-range at 300 hertz. So even if you're crossing the F200s over at 60 or 80 hertz, you're still getting a lot of benefit from those 8-inch woofers. Whereas with the 1723 Tower, you're not really getting a lot of benefit crossing them over subwoofers. So now, after living with the Arundels for over a year as Towers, what I would recommend if you're running subwoofers is to actually get the monitor of this. As long as unless you're dead set against stands, this is what I would recommend. It's actually a lot cheaper option. So at $2,600 for the pair, running with some good subs, that would be my low cost competitive option. When I had this speaker, I had basically the center channel, which is exactly the same as the speaker. I did run it as, put it on a stand, run it in mono up against the 1723S. It did sound just a tiny bit more neutral in the mid-range. That's one of the only niggles I had with the Tower S was the mid-range could have just the slightest bit of warmness. And I just accepted that as a two-way speaker with 6.5-inch woofers. They had to, I don't know, give up something, I'm guessing, for dynamics. So it gave it a little bit more warmer mid-range. And Arndal told me this themselves too, that the big boy 1723s have a bit more neutral mid-range. And I found that to be true with the center channel. Another good thing with these monitors is, especially if you're running them with subwoofers, is you can seal them up and they have that perfect THX roll-off to integrate with the subwoofers. Really, really nice. So yeah, if you're looking for a low-cost competitive option and you're using a good subwoofers, I would absolutely recommend getting the monitors. All right, here we have competitive option number 2. This is the HT Tower by Philharmonic Audio. I've not heard these specific towers, but I did own the BMR monitors. They're still one of my favorite speakers. They sound phenomenal. The highs in them are super spacious. The soundstage is huge. I think that BMR, these mid-range drivers here, just make the soundstage super wide. I have the broadest dispersion of any speaker I've ever owned. These also use these Purify woofers, which are exceptional in measuring. I mean, everything about this speaker, these parts are like top shelf. Dennis Murphy is the designer and owner of Philharmonic Audio. He's a great guy, great customer service, and great speaker designer. These things, they've been measured by Audioholics, I believe. They measure great. They're just a great speaker, great price. Definitely recommend checking these out. As far as where the woofers cross over for subs, you can see here, these cross over at 700 hertz. So like I said, you cross these over with subs for home theater, you're still getting a huge benefit out of these woofers. So I would definitely, that would be my recommendation, number 2. Recommendation number 3 for me is going to be the ELX Tower from Ascend Acoustics. Again, I have not heard this particular tower, but like I said, these are all, if I were shopping, these are the ones I'd be looking for. I have owned several Ascend Acoustics speakers. I've owned the Sierra 1s. I've owned the Sierra 2s. Great speakers, great quality, great customer service, prices. These have been measured also. I think the owner and designer of Ascend Acoustics has his own clipple that he uses design with. So these are, fantastically engineered speakers. Definitely check these out if you're in the market as well. All right, recommendation number, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4 for me is going to be a KEF, actually, the KEF R7 Meta. I haven't heard these particular ones, but I've owned the LS50s, I've owned the R3s. These are another fantastically engineered speaker, great build quality. If you want to go up in price, I'd probably maybe look at the R11 if maybe you can get a deal from the dealer, but definitely check these out. All right, so we've gone over specs, we've gone over competitive options, measurements in my room. What do these speakers sound like, right? After having these speakers for a year, I've pretty much put them through everything. I've whether it's movies like Maverick, Ready Player One, Aquaman, they sound great. They sound very dynamic. They don't compress or anything at high volumes. They handle movies with ease, even at higher volumes. There's no compression. The top end doesn't start to get distorted or anything. That is one thing against the 1723 Tower S's, is once you get to reference, especially, and start peaking over reference, the top end would start to compress, or the speaker itself would just start compressing. Eventually make some nasty noises if you push it hard enough. Whereas the F200, which, not surprising, it's a lot bigger speaker, can handle the dynamics of high volume movies better than the Arndals. Better comparison would probably be the big boy 1723 Tower. So it's not really a fair comparison, but it is what it is. So movie wise, comparing the F200 to the Arndal, if you're staying, 10, 15 under reference, I would say they're very similar. There's not a whole lot to differentiate or, between the two at lower levels. It's not till you get to higher levels where the Arndell just can't keep up with the dynamics of the Martin Logan. Where these speakers excel and they really shine, and the area that's most important to me, is with music. And it didn't matter if I was listening to Trouble's What You're In by Fink, or Come Away With Me by Norah Jones, or even Sad But True by Metallica. The speakers just have this very neutral sound with great bass quality and just soundstage and imaging like you've never heard before. Definitely the best soundstage and imaging of any speaker that I've ever owned. I just really enjoy how these speakers sound, especially with music. You EQ these speakers at least under 500 hertz in the bass region, and you're going to get a quality 2-channel full range experience out of these speakers. Saying all that, they're not perfect. There are a couple of cons I have for the speakers, mainly the baffle and the way it attaches to the enclosure. Like I mentioned on the details, they're just using like those plastic pegs and cups, like some of the subwoofer grills or speaker grills. And one of my first F200s I got, the baffle didn't fit tight to the enclosure. So Ascend AV, Ryan had it swapped out for me, no problem. But just something to keep an eye out for if you do decide to purchase these speakers is make sure your baffles are fitting on the enclosure tight, nice and tight, and get them swapped out if they're not. The other thing I have is really tiny complaint, but the feet. Although they're awesome, I wish other manufacturers did this. It makes leveling them really easy. Even when you have them where you want them, you would think that by raising them and tightening them, that it would also tighten the top. It doesn't. It still will stay kind of loose and jiggly. So it could have a tendency to rattle at higher volumes. But those are the two cons I have for this speaker. So just to wrap up this video, overall, I love this speaker. The F200 is now easily in my top 3 speakers I've owned of all time, right up there with the Klipsch Cornwall 4 and the Philharmonic BMR monitor. The dynamics on the speaker through the roof, the mid-range and soundstage, like I said, is the star. It's the best I've heard, even better than the BMRs and the Cornwalls. The bass quality, even running 2-channel without subwoofers, is still really good. I mean, you get really good quality bass. We're talking like JL Audio quality bass here, guys. This isn't just a tower that can, it does bass. It does really, really good bass. But you do need to EQ them. I really feel like under 500 hertz, you got to tame the bass down. So guys, that's it. That's the review of the Martin Logan Motion XT F200. Let me know what you think down in the comments. If you find this video helpful or entertaining, please give me a like and subscribe. One thing I've noticed is a very low percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. So I hope I've earned your subscription, and if I did, I appreciate it very much. So till next time, you guys, remember, take time to listen. Take care. Bye.